hey, this lines up so well for this guy who can't win. It's Tommy Fleetwood, and it's right now.
Yeah, and so bet him to miss the cut is what you're saying.
Basically.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog. Valspar Championship weather, that's important. Final bets, one and done, and of course, the DraftKings picks and lineups and strategy for the week. Sia Nejad is stepping in for Tambo this week. I'm pretty sure you said see ya to Tambo, and now you're here. What's going on, my man?
Gigantic shoes to fill. I won't even try to fill those shoes, but I'm happy to be on the show. I mean, what an interesting tournament for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it's a pretty high profile tournament relative to what people thought it was going to be post players, but also this weather thing is going to be like definitely a thing that we got to monitor, I guess, for until tee times, but we don't usually have a sort of a weather edge like this, and it looks like it's pretty extreme.
It does, although I would caution everyone to wait until Wednesday evening in order to make this. You're a Florida man, Sia. You know how the weather goes.
100%. And so what's so interesting is that, there's so many things that can happen, especially when it comes to, okay, well, maybe the weather is going to arrive, but maybe it kind of filters into both waves a little bit more than people anticipated. Maybe it just diminishes. Maybe that Friday weather report isn't as accurate as the Thursday weather report might be. So the closer you get to tee times, obviously, the more accurate the information is. So to go all in and just set it and forget it at this point is obviously a poor play.
Obviously, right now, the strategy is use the guys who are playing the first thing out on Thursday. It's not so much that their Thursday is going to be significantly better than the PM's Thursday. It's the next day. It is the Friday that is the key. Because even looking at it right now, 8 a.m. on Thursday, 10 mile per hour winds, gusts up to 18. By 11 a.m., it's 16 up to 22. That's when most of these guys in the AM are still going to be on the front nine, or at least just making the turn. Then they step into the teeth of 22 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour with gusts up to 30 on Thursday. So there is a bit of an advantage right now, at least, for the guys going out early. But the next day, 8 a.m., 20 mile per hour winds, 23 mile per hour gusts. 11 a.m., 12 mile per hour, 14 gusts. Then you get to the afternoon, it's like 5 miles per hour.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it looks pretty good for that AM PM advantage, but and what's interesting, because I know, we're going to talk about a lot of things here, including DFS strategy. It's really interesting because we can look at ownership right now. It's probably, as the weather report gets more refined, we're going to see the ownership like really start to, it's just going to bundle in some obvious AM, PM places with guys that were already going to be popular. So just talking about that strategy and how to make lineups, knowing what a lot of people are going to do, especially probably in the bigger contest. Pat, I don't know if you kind of have a rule of thumb in terms of how many people actually pay attention to weather, depending on the contest size and depending on the entry fee. I tend to think, obviously, that the bigger the stakes, the more you have people dialed into these weather issues.
You would think, but that's not always the case, because I've known a bunch of people who just play, $1,000 contest. They'll play, a $1,500 head-to-head, and they legit know nothing. They just have a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I guess the question is, how many of those people are there? Like, if you had to venture a guess, like if I'm doing a $100 a single, $200 entry, single entry in that 555 contest, the 555 people in it, or the 1,111 one that sometimes is offered, like what percentage of those people are actually in those contests? I mean, is it 30%? Is it 50%? 60?
I would say that in the higher, so let's take the $200 single entry, because I think that a lot of people who watch this show play in that. I generally play in it, and except for last week, didn't play in it, played in a $150 qualifier for a $3,000 ticket to get into the Fantasy Golf World Championships. Won it. How about that? With a 5-6, nonetheless. Wyndham Clark WD'd on me. Still won. When you have Rory, Spawn, and Akshay in your lineup, you're going to be good, is what I found out.
Yeah.
In a 22-man contest.
I think I saw that lineup, Pat, because I was, we're in that league together. I know, I do so many shows. We're in that league together, and you actually finished fourth, and I finished fifth, and I looked at your lineup. I think it was the same lineup, maybe that you entered.
It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
It was a similar lineup, but the lineup that I entered, my 5-6 that I entered in that qualifier of the 65 entries that I played last week, was the best lineup I had.
Wow. Good job. That is amazing.
It's lucky.
Very impressive.
Lucky stuff. So I have the ability this week. The $3,000 ticket puts you into an 8-person qualifier for the Fantasy Golf World Championship. First prize gets the seat. It's worth like 16 grand. Second place gets 4 grand cash. The rest just walk away with nothing in this circumstance. But I don't know if I want to actually enter it this week, because I can save it for whatever tournament I want, because my inclination is to anti-stack everyone, knowing that if I play in that 8-person tournament, everyone is playing the AM/PM wave. What if I just say screw it? I've seen it enough times. Drew Dinkmeyer won a Millionaire Maker at the Open Championship, and then he won the 555 or the 333 the next week doing this strategy. Looked at the weather wave and was like, I'll take the good guys from the bad wave and see if they can play their way out of it. And they did.
Yeah, when the stakes. So here's how I approach that. I think that's a really great idea, but if I'm you, and maybe I'm just, I don't push the envelope as much, and maybe that's to my detriment from a game theory standpoint. But if I had $200, like just taking it outside of your predicament, if I had $200 to spend on DFS lineups, I might put like $40 to that to opposite stacking, and then 160 to what I think the wave is, where the wave advantage is going to be, where all those lineups will take advantage of the wave advantage. In other words, like I'm not even going to like pull one guy that I really like in the opposite wave. I'm just going to go all in for that $160, and then the 40, I'm just going to like basically go the actual opposite route in something like that. I mean, Pat, more power to you if you end up doing that, but I would probably, to your initial point, I'd probably wait for a tournament where it's not as condensed, or likely isn't as condensed.
Well, that's my issue, is that in a tournament that small, knowing that everyone's going to do the same thing, I'll probably end up playing a 3v3 or a 2v2 with the entire tournament. Like that's when I win. I mean, I'll probably end up coming in last regardless of what tournament I go into. But the reason that I've won GPPs is because, talking through with Tambo and him giving me the proper strategies is one thing. He helps me solidify my lineups. But the ones that I win with are like the ones like, I was the one who took JJ Spawn and Max McGreevy last week. I had good feelings about them. I did my research. It's like, I want to play those guys. I want to play Akshay, and I want to play Rory. Let's throw those 4 guys in a lineup and see what's what. Sometimes you end up with Wyndham Clark, and it works out anyway. But because my team is so much different than everyone else's, it works. Yeah. The problem with this one is, do I want to spend $3 grand knowing that I could be dead after the first day? I probably don't. I'm probably too big of a coward to pull that off. But in giant GPPs, when we start building lineups a little bit later on, be it in the big 25, the big 5, the big 6, I like this $10 contest that can only have 18 entries in it. Like I'll probably make 10 entries one way and 8 entries the other way. But knowing that you're setting that money on fire one of the ways, probably.
Yeah, it depends, because if you go with the wave that everybody else is going to go with, I mean, there are contrarian plays you can make while still probably picking up some chalk plays. And I wouldn't call like Xander contrarian or Sam Burns like super contrarian, although, it kind of is. But I mean, we kind of know how these lineups are going to start for the most part, right? And I don't know if we want to start with DFS already, but like Tommy Fleetwood, and then, who's the next best that people want to pick, right?
Well, you have 4 of the top, was it 4 of the top highest priced guys in the field this week on DraftKings. Xander, Tommy, Straka, and Burns are all a part of what we perceive to be the good wave right now. The other thing that I tried to, because I've fallen for this trap too many times, there is a little bit of rain in the forecast on Thursday, that if that just moves up to the morning a little bit more, all of a sudden there could be a rain delay, and then the guys that you think are going to be in the good wave get stuck in the shit wave.
And that happens more often than people think. My understanding with that rain is that it's light enough that it won't delay play. But like, that's my third hand understanding, right? I'm not going to pretend that like I actually looked at the radar and I can predict exactly what's going to happen Thursday afternoon. But you're absolutely right. It gives credence to the idea of, hey, listen, go ahead and stack the wave if you want, but go ahead and stack the other wave, or just mix it up if you want to, because I like the idea of being all in. But you can be all in with your lineups without being all in with your money. And I think that's kind of what you're saying too, is that you can have your lineups go 6 for 6 with the wave, but you have your other lineups go 6 for 6 the other way with the wave. So you're playing both sides, but you're all in on both sides.
And if somehow you get lucky and your 6 of 6 of the bad wave gets through, you have ultimate leverage on the field.
Oh my gosh, it's an absolute dream scenario. I mean, that is where you want to be in DFS. And given that we're like basically playing more game theory than we're playing the players themselves, like that's how you want to set yourself up. So to not allocate any money to those opposite lineups, I feel like is probably a bad move when you have situations like this.
Yeah, so if you're playing in a 3 max, do 2 one way, 1 the other way. In a single entry, it's a little bit like that's where you're really lighting your money on fire. So if I play in the $200 this week, and maybe that's what I'll do just to see if it works. Like, I'll feel like such an idiot because I am not going to play in the 3K contest this week and do the opposite strategy. I'll save it for Houston next week. And if people check the newsletter, you might already have the Houston Open research show. And I got some, not hot leans because I don't know what the entire field is yet, although Rory just committed to next week along with Scheffler as well. I think that there's a very prototypical type of player that you can take, and it makes guys that, like, you can play Rory Scotty lineups no problem because there will be absolute goobers at the bottom who will. Stephen Fisk is going to do well next week. Maybe he doesn't end up in the field, I don't know, but like he's someone who was the first round leader there last year, along with Tyler Moore. But this tournament and next week's tournament actually share a lot of similarities in proximity buckets, skills that fit. The only big difference between Valspar and the Houston Open is you can just spray and pray off the tee in Houston, and you just cannot do that here.
Yeah. By the way, credit to you in your newsletter. And I got to say, I didn't get to take advantage of this because I was kind of distracted last Thursday morning. But I did have Jason Day, and I didn't barely ever play this guy, but I did have him in one of my big lineups, and I just missed it. It's on me. I was awake. I just missed the WD. Obviously, I didn't have much time anyway. But the fact that you sent out an email to all your newsletter subscribers or whoever else, and it came to my inbox too, Pat, and I just didn't see it because I wasn't paying attention. I felt it's just one of those sinking feelings. Like I couldn't even be mad. I couldn't even be mad at like, oh, here we go, PGA DFS doing it again with a late WD. It's like, no, you had time. And also Pat Mayo sent you an email saying, get Jason Day out of your lineups. Like I could have looked so many different places and I missed it. But credit to you. I think that was a really great thing that you did. I know you saved a lot of lineups and a lot of money.
I really hope so. I mean, if people tailed my picks on DraftKings, they did well. If they tailed my bets, they did very poorly at the Players' Championship. But, having Rory as your build-around piece and your one and done does kind of stop a little bit of the bleeding, although it would have been nice if I just pumped all my money on Rory in the betting market too. I didn't want to be all in on one guy, Sia, and that's what ended up happening to me.
I had Rory in my one and done too, and I really liked him as an outright, but when I got to the number, maybe it stabilized around 10-1 the whole time. I just
15.
Wasn't super.
It was 15. It was 15 by Wednesday night. That's why I got so intrigued by it.
So that's the thing is I saw it all week at 10. I guess I just didn't realize it. And also I had already kind of made my bets at that time. So once it got to 15, it still wouldn't have been super attractive to me. If it had opened at 15 and when I was putting my bets in, it was at 15, I would have definitely bet it because I really liked Rory last week enough to put him in the one and done. But and he was in my listen, I cashed on the $100 single entry with 4 out of 6 because Rory was in my lineup. So he did win me some money, I guess.
Here is how you know the weather is actually impactful this week. The moment they released the tee times, the odds all changed on the board. Justin Thomas is no longer the betting favorite in this field. He was 12-1. He's 19-1 now. Tommy and Straka get put in the good wave. Tommy Fleetwood is the favorite in a PGA tournament with like actual good players in it right now. He's 12-1, down from 16-1. Straka goes from 22 to 15-1. Xander goes from 28 to 22, and then some of the other guys get bumped down a little bit, except for Burns. Burns was the really weird one. Like Burns actually went back down. He was at 28, then he went to 30, despite the fact that he's in the good wave.
Burns on approach is just a mess right now. Given his history, you would think it would go down. And by the way, Pat, every single market, and this shouldn't be a surprise, but every single market was affected by this. Not just the outright market, the first round leader market, like dramatically affected by this. But even when you went to like top in region or the nationality props. Like, for example, I liked, let's see, it was Corey Connors' top Canadian, which was plus 100, plus 110. As soon as the weather news and the tee times came out, that moved to plus 130. And Svensson, who's the only Canadian that happens to be in the morning tee times, all the others are with Connors in the afternoon, went from plus 700 to like plus 360 at FanDuel and at DraftKings. I will note, BetMGM still to this, I mean, they left the number, the old number up on the top nationality for hours and hours. So, I mean, some of these books are catching up to the outright part, but it's not necessarily filtering into some of those more, I don't know, like niche plays like nationality props. But yeah, I mean, listen, Fleetwood, he probably deserves to be the favorite. I just like everybody else make fun of Fleetwood when it comes to like people betting him outright. But like if the circumstances, they couldn't be any better than this, given who's in the field, given that some of the guys in the field are still kind of working things out, like Xander Schauffele, and arguably like Justin Thomas, given that Tommy is in the right weather wave and that he's a good course fit, that he's got good course history, like this seems like a process of elimination play. And I haven't bet Tommy Fleetwood outright, but in terms of, hey, this lines up so well for this guy who can't win, it's Tommy Fleetwood, and it's right now.
Yeah, and so bet him to miss the cut is what you're saying.
Basically. I mean, listen, I'm not betting him, and I don't know that I can play him in DFS. I mean, I might fit him into some lineups, but we're going to see ownership like, 30% plus. By the way, I do want to mention missing the cut. Like, I don't make those bets a lot, but I did see on MGM, Cameron Young to miss the cut was -118 both ways. They give you the no option on those at BetMGM, and I went ahead and bet that Cameron Young to miss the cut.
He did come second here last year. And it's funny, watching it back, I went and watched each of the rounds of Valspar this morning. Because you always have it in your head. A lot of people, like I had Keith Mitchell last year. He ejected himself very early on during the day. I also had Cameron Champ, who was weirdly lurking the entire time.
Interesting.
And then he went away. I think he was a live bet because his approach numbers were so good. But I picked him up at 125 to 1 on Friday or something. And I was like, all right, let's go. And he started making some putts. Then he went away. And obviously Malnati ended up winning, but so many people had this Cam Young outright ticket. And in your mind, you remember the drop that Malnati got on 16, where he was able to basically do the JJ Spawn. He dropped it out of the rough, and he dropped it onto the fairway or onto the green and was able to putt it to get through number 16, which is very difficult. If you ever want to see my swing and how I played the snake pit on the research show on a simulator this week. So you can go mock my swing if you go check out that
that's
show
fun
right now. Yeah, we played it all. I went with my golf coach, who's a CPGA Pro or PGA of Canada Pro. I sponsor him on the mini tours around here. He's so good. It's incredible. He played Cabot towards the end of last year. He was like 9 under through 13 or something. It's like, okay, great, man. Thanks. I'm out here trying to break 80.
That's amazing. What's his name?
Neil Ryan.
That's incredible. I absolutely love that. By the way, Cameron Young, he did come in second last year, but one thing I looked at, if you looked at his incoming form coming into the Valspar, he was smoking it with the ball striking, particularly on approach. So the thing is, like that second place, it's totally valid. He did it all the right way, all the things we want to see. But the incoming form was like the Cameron Young that we sort of fantasize about from a few years ago. It was like, oh, that Cameron Young who like absolutely can contend every week. This is the Cameron Young. This version is the guy who literally can't gain on approach. So the incoming form here is so drastically different than the incoming form last year at the Valspar that I don't think it's rekindled or found this week. And that's why I went with the miscut.
Oh, I agree with you. He did make the cut last week at the Players and then absolutely bombed on the weekend. That's what we expect from him. I guess my point was, so many people had Cameron Young in the outright betting market. They're like, oh, he blew it against Malnati. But going back and watching Malnati play the snake pit, like he hit like the 2 best iron shots of his life. Like he stuck it on number 17 and made the birdie to win the tournament. He puts it into the left bunker on number 18 and just has the stones out of those bigger bunkers on the left-hand side to fly it up and over past and get it to stop at the back end of the green. He almost made that putt too and just went and tapped in for the win to win by 2. But it's not like Young gagged it away. Malnati went and won that tournament.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, Malnati, I kind of felt bad for him last week too. I don't know if you saw, I think on 18, he like double or triple bogeyed and he was one clear. Yeah, to miss the cut. He was one clear of the cut line. I think it was a double bogey that put him to even par. I mean, it's interesting in tournaments like this where guys like Peter Malnati pop up. It lends itself to, taking the long shot, especially with who we have at the top.
Well, do you know what other tournament Peter Malnati may have won in the past? He won.
I don't.
He won the Sanderson Farms earlier on in his career, and obviously he wins at Valspar last year. Do you know who another winner of Sanderson Farms is?
I'm trying to figure out where you're driving this bus.
Sam Burns, who has won at Valspar
Sam Burns.
twice.
Oh, okay.
So there's something there. Keith Mitchell this year was 3rd at Sanderson Farms. Obviously, he was winning. Actually, he was winning the Sanderson Farms and then gagged it away. Mackenzie Hughes is someone who's won at Sanderson Farms in the past. I believe he was 3rd at Valspar last year. So there's actually kind of a long line of guys. It's a bit more difficult to figure out, mainly because this field is so much stronger than it normally is at Copperhead. So when you start to try to dig through the field in a weaker field, like, oh, this is a kind of a perfect comp with everything, because that's a weak field during the swing season. This is a much better tournament. Now we have the wind wave to go into it. But even to go back and look at some of these other winners of it, like Cameron Champ was a winner at Sanderson Farms. Obviously, he popped up on the leaderboard. Nick Taylor's very first win on tour came at Sanderson Farms in 2014. Sergio was a winner there. Sebastian Munoz, who I believe has been a first-round leader here in the past. Kevin Yu won it earlier on during the swing season. So there is a little bit of crossover that way. Seb Straka is someone who has come in second at Sanderson Farms in the past. Malnati has both won it and come second place. Corey Connors has come in second place at that tournament as well. So there's a lot of linkage between those two. And I don't know if, the Bermuda should be in full effect in September or October when they play Sanderson Farms. This is now dormant Bermuda, so it's Poa Trivalis. I don't know what exactly it is, but there's something between these two tournaments that's a link. I got to figure out. Like, I really wanted to bet Ben Griffin, who came second at Sanderson Farms 2 years ago. He was 11th this year. He's coming off a fourth. Then he missed the cut at the Players, so his number got absolutely killed. He ends up in the terrible wave. So what do I do now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. All those names have popped up to some degree. Some of those names, I should say, have popped up in my research, or when I look at the head-to-head markets, I see that some guys are getting like a little bit more respect than I think they deserve from a price standpoint. And maybe that's what people are saying as well.
Yeah, Bud Cauley was another one who done really well this year. I was like, oh, coming off that nice Players, he's going to be super deep. Obviously, he gets stuck in the bad wave. So I won't even call these the final bets, because I really do still want to wait for the weather to mature a little bit. The three I went with on Monday, I've added two to that list right now. So for the outright betting card for Valspar, I bet on Corey Connors. He's in the bad wave. I actually think he's the type of player to come out of the bad wave, because his game doesn't really listen, he's still going to miss putts either way. It doesn't matter if it's windy or not. And it's actually kind of helpful for him, because this tournament has the most missed putts inside 5 feet of any tournament that is not Riviera. So Connors was going to miss those putts anyway. But now other people might miss those putts, which is a real equalizer for him. His ball striking will be good enough. He misses in the right spots, which means he can chip it fine at this tournament. So I have him at 25-1. His number is actually better now. It's now down to 28 if you want to take it. Just know that he's in the bad wave. I bet Michael Kim, my guy, at 45. He's now down to 40 because he's in the good wave. I bet on Sam Ryder 175-1 with 8 placement points, so a top 8 to go along with it. He's now stuck in the bad wave. Today, I added Nikolai Højgaard at 90-1. I was circling him anyway to do it. The approach has been great. The putting has been great. And I do think that once you put him more of a Parkland situation where you have to get him to keep it between the trees, he gets less sprayy. He's probably a better play next week at Houston because the driver can get a bit loose on him. But I think that he can manage it here. He's just playing some really good golf. Should have made the cut at the Players and just kept hitting the water off the tee. So there's not that much water around this course versus Sawgrass, so he should be okay. The biggest one I played, though, was 175-1. Chandler Phillips, first round leader. He's the first man on the course.
That's interesting. I've already kind of put out some, I shouldn't say put out, but I've already carved out who my first round leaders are going to be. I did come across Chandler Phillips' name just in my general research. I came off of him for whatever reason. I don't mind that outright card. You want to hear the four that I've bet?
Let's hear it.
All right, so I'm with you on Michael Kim. So I'm with you on the 40-1. I think in most places that's been chopped down to like 33, believe it or not, because again, all these guys are in the right side of the wind. The rest of my card right now is actually like pretty long shotty. Jacob Bridgman at 60-1. This is a guy I've actually been on. If you follow like my round matchups and things like that, I've been isolating Jacob Bridgman. It's really been paying off. Driving accuracy, a small issue, but the mid to long iron play, and this is why I liked him a couple weeks ago too, mid to long iron play is solid. And he does appear to have the complete game. I mean, he's not exactly a guy that I want to take from an outright standpoint week to week, but I do think under the circumstances, being on the right side of the wave, that a guy who's been kind of lingering around the top 20 is a worthy play. And then the other two, I'll go Joe Highsmith, 66-1. Ball striking has been excellent, small sample size, but we know he's won. Putter's been on a roll lately, around the green play up and down, but he's played here once before too, which I do think matters. He did miss the cut, but he's played here once. A guy who hasn't played here and that has super long odds, although they have been chopped down by 20 points, is Danny Walker. I'm going to take him at 120-1. If you go like full on recent form, weighted tee to green, weighted ball striking, really, really good. Not super accurate off the tee, but the ball striking last week in particular was really good at the players. You go back to Puerto Rico, he was one of my outrights there as well. I ended up cashing that Carl Phillips play with you, Pat. But I had Danny Walker on my card because the research really spoke to me even then. If you go back even further to the Korn Ferry Tour, this guy's been a top 25 machine on the Korn Ferry Tour. So I think the game is a little bit more consistent than people think, and I think the upside's a little bit better than people think. So at 120 to 1 in the right wave, willing to speculate.
So my issue became, like, I like Bridgman as well. I went to go bet him, and then I checked it. Of course, he's in the terrible wave. I was like, oh, do I really want to back?
No, he's not.
Bridgman is. Bridgman's in the bad wave.
Is he really?
No, you're right.
Oh,
He is not in the bad wave. You are correct. So maybe I can go.
Yeah,
bet
that's right.
Bridgman.
AM PM.
Yeah,
Right?
65 is the best number I see on him right now. Shout out to our friends at coolbet.com. Got the 65 link. They also sneakily, if you have Coolbet, they have Bobby Mack 150 to 1 to win the Masters right now. They also have him at 40 to 1 to win the Open. But I mean, big tall lefty, smash the ball out there. That sounds like he's played well at Augusta in the past too.
150 is a huge number. I love it.
It's 80 to 1 everywhere else. It's 150 there. So I took that. Tune in next Monday. We go review all of the future bets that we've made for majors and try to give you out some. So Collie, Glover, Griffin were 3 that I were circling. They ended up in the bad wave. So I'm thinking about pivoting. Maybe I'll throw Bridgman back into the mix. But I was looking at Dietrich. I was looking at Bridgman, Rico Hoey, and Kevin Yu, who I just said won the Sanderson Farms. Yeah. He's not playing his best golf, but if you just go and take anytime that you go back and look at stats, I think you can just throw the players out, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you there, but I mean, where has Kevin Yu been in terms of like closing in any like appreciable way? Like I guess that's the problem I have. Although I'm seeing some top 20s here.
He won a tournament like 4 months ago.
Sanderson Farms. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
And
all right, fair enough.
He has gained on approach in 8 consecutive tournaments to begin the year. He's great off the tee. He can't chip and he can't putt. But when he does putt, he gains like 8 strokes putting.
Yeah, I guess the only issue I'd have is like I don't like when you're so consistently bad with the short game. Like if he was like kind of checkered with the short game, but still really bad with the putter, it'd be more of an argument. But like he's losing a lot around the green and with the putter. But I hear you. I mean, Kevin Yu has. I mean, it feels like Kurt Kitayama-ish, right? Like poor man's Kurt Kitayama?
In a way, sort of like the poor man's Corey Connors. Like, isn't this the sort of number you would like to see from... I know Corey's been gaining a little bit more around the greens, but around the green can be like putting. Like, you see you're right, like -2, -2.9, -2.6, and then all of a sudden at Torrey Pines, +3.1. Like, you just need to chip in, and it saves you a lot. And one of the things about Copperhead, it's not actually that difficult of a course from around the greens. Yeah, it's a bit of a thicker rough, but as long as because his ball striking is so good, that's why I still like Connors. If you take the good ball strikers with a bad short game, at least at Copperhead, if they can miss in the right spots, you just end up with a lot of green to work with. And not anyone, like I can't do it, but it's like saying like Luke List is the world's worst putter. But if you went out and watched Luke List on like a practice green, you'd be like, this guy is fucking amazing. Like he puts everything to like 2 feet. It's just versus actually the best putters in the world. He's terrible. Not like he's not actually a bad putter.
Has Adam Svensson taken over the Luke List Kyle Stanley crown?
Oh my God, Luke List or Adam Svensson, sponsored by Coolbet, just like Pat Mayo.
Oh,
I think he might be coming on the show soon as well. So I like him here. I'd like to see him get a win. I think if he wins and gets a Masters invite, I might get to go to the Masters. So I'm rooting for Adam Svensson.
Wow. I mean, his ball striking, if I recall looking last year, his ball striking was great. It was just the putter again. I think he lost a ton of strokes with the putter, but it's that thing that people always say, if he could just be neutral with the putter. Usually when you make that statement, it's not going to work out for you. But again, Adam Svensson he's the lone Canadian, mind you, on the good side of the wave. Something to be said for that.
There is, but the type of guys, the 2 types of guys that you would want in the bad wins, like Connors, I think would be good because he has the low ball flight. He's still just going to hit fairways, and even if he misses the fairway, he's very good out of the rough with his long irons. He's just such a strong iron player. When you get a lot of wind, what you want at that point is just pure flushers, the guys who hit the middle of the club face, and that's what he does almost better than anyone on tour. Like that's his entire game. So I don't worry about him in the wind enough. It's weirdly kind of like JT. JT's biggest problem is that he's too good and he hits it off the face too much, so he thinks he can do too much with what he's trying to do. So it's super windy and he's like, nah, I'm just going to drop back into this wind with a super hook. It's like, man, just hit the ball fucking straight. I know you can do that. Just like let the wind push it a little bit. You don't need to get fancy with the shot.
You're so right. It feels like course management is kind of the name of the game with the hyper talented players. And some you've probably got a better eye for this than I do, but some just refuse to kind of do the simple thing, which is probably going to get you where you need to be.
Strangely enough, that's how Rory won the Players and won at Pebble. He was able to, I mean, he didn't drive the ball all that well, but he still hit it into spots where he was able to recover. And part of the thing, it was a lot like, in some ways, like when Bryson won the US Open, that he's like, no one is hitting the fairway, so I will just simply hit it as far as I can, because when I am in the rough, I can use a wedge, and that's fine. I don't need to use a 4-iron like Denny McCarthy is doing. Rory this week, like when he just missed so goddamn far down the course, he was able to get out of trouble because he didn't have to hit a long iron.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree.
But both the courses he has won at so far this year, short potential club down courses, which is really strange to think about, considering he's probably the best driver on tour.
Yeah, interesting.
One and done picks for the week. I'm up to 25th in the race for the Mayo Cup, not for the show team. That team's in 935th place, the team that Tambo helps me make my pick with. The one where I just kind of pivot off the secondary guy that we were talking to. Picked up a Ludwig win, picked up a Rory win last week. I'm up to 25th. One more good week, I could be in first here, but I think this might be the peak. It's the latest I've actually been in contention like ever in the one and done. So help me through. What are your initial thoughts? Let's say everyone was able to be on the board for you for one and done.
Yeah.
Where do you think that you would be going here? Like, would you burn Fleetwood knowing that you're probably not going to use them anywhere else?
Yeah, it's not even burning Fleetwood. It's using Fleetwood because, again, in this event with the weather advantage, with the lack of your Scotties and your whatever, Patrick Cantlays and your Roy McIlroys, like it does suit Tommy Fleetwood. And he's got great course history here too. Like especially somebody who's kind of playing from ahead. And I don't know that you need to go full game theory here this early in the one and done season. So what I'm saying is even if you're far behind, you don't have to like absolutely pivot off Tommy Fleetwood, but yeah, in your position, I would absolutely go Tommy Fleetwood. When I'm looking at the top of the board here, especially when I'm accounting for what I think is going to be that advantage. I mean, I think if there wasn't an advantage to account for, I think you could get a little cute with like a Corey Connors or a Will Zalatoris or something like that. But I'm lining up Fleetwood versus Straka, and Fleetwood seems like, I can't believe I'm saying it because I think Straka actually has more win equity. Like down the stretch of a tournament with 9 holes left, if these two are tied, I actually like Straka more than I like Fleetwood. But in terms of the 4 rounds and the history and all those things, it's Tommy Fleetwood, and then you move on to the next tournament.
I was thinking about for this team because, I mean, I don't mind getting a little bit crazy for this one, because it's not a high stakes tournament. If you win like 1.4 million, obviously helpful. If you don't get the winner, like you come T10, it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about using someone from the bad wave in this one, like a good player from the bad wave that I just know that I'm not going to use elsewhere. Like, so I was actually thinking about using Corey Connors or Shane Lowry this time around. I mean, maybe Shane Lowry's too gassed from playing TGL on Tuesday night. I don't know. But with Connors, I already said I still like him out of that wave anyway, and I know that people will not use him because of that I might get a 1% Corey Connors. Like the only other place I could fathom using him would be in 2 weeks at Valero. I'm sure I can find a Corey Connors equivalent there.
Yeah, but just to be clear, is this the one where you're doing with Tambo where you're kind of trailing a little bit, or is this the one you're in 25th place? Because I do think that matters.
This is the one where I'm in 937th. So
okay,
like I'm out of the money. So I can make a move if Connors wins.
Yeah,
I'm not ceding ground in the top one because I know that no one's going to use Corey Connors. Like I don't want to use Corey Connors on my team that's in 25th. I know no one in the top 100 is going to use Corey Connors. That'd be crazy.
That's right. So let me ask you this. Would you rather use, let me give you 2 options that are in the good wave that I don't think a lot of people are going to use. Although one of them people might use a little bit. So Tom Kim and Michael Kim are both in the good wave. And obviously Tom Kim has some issues, particularly with the short game and the putting in particular, but he did gain almost 10 strokes approach last week. And he's been really good on approach really since last December, if not actually way further back. He's been great on approach just in general. Would you rather play your other side of the win wave play, or would you rather play Tom Kim?
I'd rather play Connors than Tom Kim right now.
Yeah,
if I was going to lean into the wave, I'd probably try to use someone like Sam Burns. Like
okay.
Straka or Burns would be the 2 that'd be available for me. I mean, Michael Kim's definitely an option. Other than that, like you're really digging down. Like I mentioned Dietrich. I mentioned Kevin Yu. I probably don't need to go down that far. Your boy Bridgman might not be a terrible play either. Where I'm never going to use him again. And one thing that I've noticed about me being in 25th right now, like I have 2 wins in signature events at the Genesis and the Players. It's basically the only 2 good picks I've made with that team, and I'm in 25th place. Like these tournaments really don't matter. The only time that it matters if you can get someone that no one else has.
That's totally fair. So if you're willing to go down to Bridgman, I'd ask you, and I don't like either of these 2 guys, but I just want to like perform the exercise here. Steven Yeager had a nice week last week, and Keith Mitchell.
Fuck Steven Yeager. I bet against that dude. And then all of a sudden, when he turns into goes full Steven Yeager mode, where he's hitting it into the practice range and shit like that. I mean, maybe he'll end up coming inside the top 10 again. I don't like his skill set for this course. Obviously, next week, where he's the defending champ, a spray and pray course, that's perfect for him. He can hit it anywhere he wants and then scramble his way out of it, which he's excellent at. I just hear, you end up like Adam Schenk on the 72nd hole, having to play it lefty because you're next to a tree.
By the way, Adam Schenk doesn't profile he does profile poorly, but if you look at his history here, it looks pretty good. I'm just throwing that out there.
It's like Sam Ryder, even though he's in the bad wave, the two of the 3 best putting performances of his life have come at this course, and it's like not even close to anything else that he's ever done.
And in 2023, Schenk, obviously he gained more than 7 with the putter, but the ball striking was good as well. So it wasn't like, the putter completely carried him, but I didn't realize he was in the bad wave. So it's probably not great, given his current form.
I mean, you could use Spieth, too. I really wanted to bet Spieth coming into this week, but the bad wave got me off him. So officially, for the show team, I am going to use Corey Connors out of the bad wave for this team. And I think that I know what I'm going to do for my main team. I'm going to take someone in the good wave, but fuck it up. I'm using Sam Burns because no one else is going to use him.
All right.
Where else am I using Sam Burns? You might as well just use him at a course where he's won twice before.
So you don't want to just take the Tommy Fleetwood like T4 play?
No, not really. Because what if he comes T9? Then it's useless, and then everyone else will have him.
Yeah, that's very true. True.
So I'll hope to get lucky in that regard with that. And then for the other team, I just got to take someone and pray that they win. Maybe we'll take like Dietrich or something. See how that ends up working out. Dietrich, my underdog contest is filled, the Pat Mayo Open. So you have to play in the Albatross or the Big Albatross. I have my strategy article up in my newsletter right now. It's also posted on X underneath articles if you want to go check that out. But Dietrich is actually someone I really like as a late round pick. He's only in 2 majors, but he's in the Masters and the PGA Championship. He is built for PGA Championships and US Opens. He's actually, he performed great in both of them last year. He was top 20 in both of them last year.
Yeah, I was thinking about him from a DFS standpoint only this week. I don't know. He just seems so erratic. You talk about Steven Yeager being all over the place. Well, I guess he's been good off the tee, but the ball striking is just so erratic with Thomas Dietrich. He's super talented, though. I get it.
Think about the types of players who've won here, though. Aren't they sort of the erratic approach players?
Yeah.
So last year, Malnati wins. Like, that's just a pure outlier of a situation. Then you think back to the year before. Taylor Moore. Well, what's the one part of Taylor Moore's game that sucks? It's his approach play. He's great. Sam Burns, great driver, great putter, great chipper. Maybe his irons work, but they seem to work here good enough. Maybe in the absolute teeth of the wind, they're not going to be so good. Paul Casey was just excellent tee to green. Like, he was a pure flusher, tee to green. And like, that's really the skill set that you want, is who's just good in every facet of the game. It just, all of those guys somehow appear to be in the bad wave.
That's right. There's a lot of those guys in the battle. You're right about the approach. I mean, so here's the thing. A lot of the guys that I want to lean on at the Valspar have some substance across the board, across all metrics. They like the putter I'm not quite as worried about unless it's really terrible, but weighted tee to green type stuff where you're pretty good everywhere. You could be deficient with the approach, but if you're good everywhere else, I can play you this week.
Look, I know we got a lot of male listeners out there, and that amongst us, hair thinning, very common. It's a very frustrating problem that many men deal with, from stress to nutrition to hormones and lifestyle. So many internal factors affect what you see on the outside. Luckily, Nutrafol is here to help. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For me, it's all preventative. If I can take this now, hopefully I'm not going to have to deal with any thinning down the line. But if you want to build a hair growth routine, it's simple. Purchase online, no prescription required, automated deliveries, and free shipping to keep you on track. Plus, with a Nutrafol subscription, you can save up to 20%. You'll have access to free naturopathic doctor consults, and a Headspace meditation membership is also included. So, start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering my listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code PATMAYO. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code PATMAYO. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code PATMAYO. Welcome to TGL, presented by SoFi, golf's newest league. It's sharp, and it's electric. 2 hours of hammer dropping, overtime force, and playoffs on the line golf with 24 of the best players from the PGA Tour. The championship is here. Match 1, Monday, March 24th. The top 2 seeds face off, 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus. Match 2 is Tuesday, March 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus. Tune in to catch all the TGL playoff action. Keep up. It's golf. Let's move over to DraftKings and start building some lineups, because I know that's why people are here. I wouldn't really look all that much at ownership right now, although at fantasynational.com, fantasynational.com/Mayo gets you 20% off. You get the monthly right now. You get Valspar through Heritage. That includes the Masters. So you probably want to take advantage of the monthly deal. Get your 20% off on it right now. And you get access to the app, which is just the single only app you ever need to use to track golf. It's so much better than the PGA Tour's app. It's crazy. So here's why I like the Burns play as one and done, and why I like him in DFS this week too. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be any good or not. He's Sam Burns. I'm going to probably shit over his leg and withdraw or something. But taking a look at the ownership, it has sort of already market corrected for the wave. Like Justin Thomas is coming in at 12% ownership, where Xander, Fleetwood, and Straka, 21, 33, 33. Sam Burns, who's also cheaper and a part of that wave, 10%. That's the play.
I don't hate it. It's so interesting too, because he right now is that Taylor Moore profile. I mean, to a T, really, because he's got the course history, just like Taylor Moore does. Obviously, Burns is better, but off the tee, he hasn't been terrible. Certainly hasn't been great, but he hasn't been terrible. Approach has been like bad, and the around the green play has been very solid, and the putter's been very solid. So, I mean, as much as we want to emphasize approach, clearly Sam Burns can get it done a different way, and we've seen people get it done a different way here. I think that's a really good game theory start, even though he's probably going to end up getting some ownership before lock, but compared to Sepp, compared to Tommy Fleetwood, even compared to Xander Schauffele, maybe your numbers are more updated than mine, but he seems to be like the low guy by a pretty decent amount.
Yeah, he is the low guy by about half of what the other three are, and even a third of maybe what Fleetwood comes in at. I'm good at full fading Fleetwood this week. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that.
Oh, what do you need Tommy Fleetwood to win a tournament? That's how he pays off his price? Okay, I'll fade that.
I mean, the truth is, the way this tournament is like lining up, like this is probably why I have such like a long shot outright card. Like, you could have a guy down the line win the tournament and have Tommy Fleetwood obviously finish like fourth and still like win all your contests. But it is kind of funny to think about Tommy Fleetwood at potentially 30 to 35% ownership, really in any tournament, no matter how good the circumstances are for my one and done selection, for example. Like, I mean, unless it's Scotty Scheffler or maybe Rory, like once you get to 30%, it's like, all right, I'll probably look the other way.
So I'm now trying to figure out who the guys at the bottom are going to be. So I'm trying to fill out what I think is going to be the chalkiest lineup. Do you have a sense of where people are going to go to build? Because I think you go Fleetwood, Straka, they're the top two from the top. Bridgman, Highsmith at 74 and 73. And then we find two more guys from the good wave.
Yeah, I mean, I do think people could start with, instead of going with Straka, they could start with Fleetwood and let's see, Michael Kim.
All right, if you do Fleetwood and Michael Kim with Bridgman and Highsmith, it gives you $8,000 left. And what I'm seeing right now, right around that $8,000 mark, no one is really popping up. Yes, people are using Michael Kim, people are using Tom Kim, people are still using Shane Lowry, even though he's in the bad wave, isn't he?
He is in the bad wave,
Yeah,
yes.
people are still using him anyway. And he's a good win player. He's Irish, so you got to get him in there. But it's Michael Kim above like Poston, Moore, Clanton, that kind of thing. I'm not really seeing a lot of congregated ownership. So I think that people will just see that tier right around 8,000 and be like, you know what? I like Michael Kim enough. I like Seb Straka better at that price, and then go down. So I said Bridgman, Highsmith. I think Nikolai Højgaard is going to end up getting some steam as well because he's a part of that good wave that gives you $7,700. It lands you on Dietrich. Kitayama is right there. Is Kitayama in the good wave?
He is, I believe, in the good wave, yes.
So if he is, that's probably the play.
He is.
And you know who he is, yeah. So you know who loves Kurt Kitayama? Optimizers and Sims.
Yes. Yes. By the way, so I think you mentioned him earlier in the show, but it's so easy to build because you can go down to that 7K range and find Rico Hoey in the good wave. You can go down to, and I wouldn't be surprised if this guy gets steamed up a little bit, like a guy that I like, Danny Walker at 6,900. I think there's some guys in that low 7K range that are going to pick up ownership. Rico Hoey, speaking of optimizers, actually, I don't know if he's popping up in optimizers because it's only really been really the recent form with Rico, but I mean, I think he's close to 10% already in the numbers I'm looking at a flat 7K.
I think that he'll get up there too. Good wave, coming off a pretty decent week, made the cut at the Players. He was so popular at Puerto Rico, and so many of his swing season and early season stats are baked into his numbers that he should be popular. Like I was thinking about betting him this week, like when we went through it. I just don't know if I can quite get there. I'm trying to find guys down the list that I like. I'm good with playing Chandler Phillips. Chandler Phillips, I believe, was 4th this tournament last year as well. He is a part of the early wave. He's at $6,700. I don't hate that, so he'll end up making my player pool that way. Other than him, down in the 6s, do you have any leans for guys in the 6s? Like, are you playing Steven Fisk?
I'm not playing Steven Fisk. I'll tell you, I'm playing Danny Walker for sure at 6,900. There was a couple other guys in the good wave. I'll tell you, Kieran Von Wick is a guy I'm interested in playing. It is really a dart.
You cannot play. Did you see this, man? I watched Puerto Rico. He played in the final.
Me too.
Dude just hit the ski. Like he's an amateur from South Africa. That's how he got himself into this tournament. Dude, I can't. He wasn't even like contending at that point, and the nerves got to him. I don't know what he's going to do in a real field.
No, that's true, but I was impressed through 3.5 rounds. It looked like the guy was like a pro. I mean, I was just super. Listen, I mean, this is really me just like throwing out a dart, almost like so that if it works out, I can cut up the clip and be like, hey, look, I'm the one that said this kid from College of Charleston's gonna be really good. I think he's talented. Am I going to include him in like a big time lineup? Probably not. I'm looking at the good. I think Jackson Suber, is this a home course for him? He never really works out. He's kind of a model guy as well, but he's 6,500. Oh, here's one. Okay. So aside from Danny Walker, it's going to be Ricky Castillo at 6,600.
Next week.
He's
next week for Tricky Ricky.
Okay.
Dude bombs it. The guy you want to play is Davis Riley, a former playoff loser at this course to Sam Burns. 6,800, sneaky good form. The only guy who's been betting him over and over and over again is Jeff Ulrich. But now I'm on board too. I might actually outright bet Davis Riley this week.
Yeah, he's been an outright on. So I do a show on the early wedge with Patrick McDonald and some others. And I think he's bet Davis Riley like the last 2 weeks at like 250 to 1 and like 500 to 1. And it's funny with Davis Riley, like, is he in the good wave? He must be. Like first round leader, Davis Riley might be the play because he always pops off for like the first round and a half or so. And then all of a sudden he like kind of goes away. I don't hate the Davis Riley call. I'll say this about Ricky. He played this tournament last year and he missed the cut, but he was excellent in the ball striking department. He lost 5+ strokes putting, and that is kind of a problem with him with the short game, but he has popped here and there recently. So I think he's interesting from an upside standpoint.
Wow. I bet Chandler Phillips at 175 to 1 in the first round leader market like 3 hours ago. He's 90 to 1 now. Davis Riley's 80 to 1. I'm still going to bet that.
Wow.
I'll take it. Take them both with the top 5. See what I can do. Oh, Kevin Yu is there as well. Let's bet him at 110 to 1. Oh, just wasted.
I like
money. That. There we go.
Yu is the perfect first round leader play. He's not going to win.
Are you making the bets as I go along? Oh. So the chalk lineup that we put through. So the lineup looks like Fleetwood, Straka, Kitayama, Bridgman, Highsmith, and Nikolai Højgaard. So if we switch that up a little bit, I feel pretty good about Davis Riley. I feel pretty good about that other guy whose name now I can't remember from down the list, who I had hyped up in the $6,000 range. Oh, Chandler Phillips.
Rico Hoey.
So
Chandler
let's just change Bridgman and Highsmith to, who the hell did I just say? Davis Riley at 68, and then we can use Chandler Phillips at 67. We can take Højgaard out, and we can take Kitayama out. So now we have 8,100. So what we could do now is throw back in Bridgman, and I think that gets us up to Michael Kim. But I think just to get a little bit different, I get rid of Fleetwood, keep Straka, and use Burns in his place. And now I have $8,300 to really fuck around with that I could go back up top. Okay, let's say I throw in Rico right now. Your guy Rico. Now I have 97. It leaves me short. Damn it.
You know what you could have done if you wanted to leave Fleetwood in, and I know you just said you're not going to play Fleetwood in your lineups, but you could go like full Vanderpump and go Tom with Tommy Fleetwood and Tom Kim. And that's not huge leverage that you're creating, but I don't think people are going to pair those guys up a ton. And then you're still adding like Davis Riley, Chandler Phillips, like guys that like not a lot of people are going to play. So your leverage has already been created down low, and you're still creating at least a little bit of leverage off the Tommy Fleetwood because most people are pairing him with a more popular Michael Kim or whatever, Sepp Straka.
I like this a lot. So yeah, Burns, Fleetwood, Tom Kim with Hoey, Davis Riley, and Phillips. One thing that you can take a look at in this tournament in particular, where is, so like Jager's 79, Thigala has to be in the bad wave.
He's in the bad wave.
Okay. Yeah. What is he, like a 200 to 1 to win now? Like, I can't believe how much, like, his numbers are so abysmal. It's kind of outrageous how bad he's been. But in this $8,000 range, there's just very few guys. And then when you get down to the Thigala level, it's sort of like you get to him, Dietrich's at 77, Kitayama's at 76, and so is Bez. And then you can kind of like just draw a line underneath Bez. It is the line of demarcation of this tournament. Because, listen, I like Ryan Gerard. I get that he's like a fan favorite on the internet. Just scroll down $1,000 more. He's not any different than Matteo Mantasero or Brian Campbell or Matt McCarty or any of these guys. They're all the same guy, but they're $1,000 different in price. Like, the real leverage is at the top if you can squeeze in all those guys. So I don't actually hate, putting in Rico Hoey instead of a $7,500 Gerard if it gets me Kim and Fleetwood. I think that works out a little bit better because I just don't see, like, we can talk about Bridgman and we can bet him to win, and yeah, Highsmith just won. Are they that different than their $6,500 counterpart? Really?
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, I could see, for example, like Adam Svensson at 6,700 also in the good wave. I could see him having a nice tournament. Like, ball striking, I think, is going to be there. You mentioned Chandler Phillips. CT Pan, I mean, he's 6,700. Mac Meisner. I mean, Pan, the last two times he's played her, he's made the cut. I mean, he's been in the 40s each time, but Mac Meisner last year was T26. He's in that 6,700 range. Like, I don't want to go too far, like, personally with my lineups, I'm not going to go too far into the sixes, but I'm just like, your point is well taken. Some of those guys like Bridgman, I think actually are better, but I don't think tournament to tournament, it's so much better that like you have to take the mid 7K guy versus sometimes the mid to upper 6K guy.
Like, if you're really concerned about, let's say, Joe Highsmith's ownership gets a little bit out of control, and by out of control, I mean like 13-14% because he's part of the good wave, just pivot on to Matt Wallace at $7,200, who will be 4% owned, also in the good wave, who might be better.
You know who nobody's playing, by the way? Jonathan Vegas. And he doesn't have great history here, but if you want to talk about a flusher, classically like a flusher, particularly, I mean, just the off the tee and the approach numbers are great. It's the short game that's been holding him back. He's making cuts barely, but I think Vegas has some upside. He has no ownership from what I'm seeing. He's 7,200.
I can see it too. And again, is he someone who's markedly different than anyone within $500 of him?
Not really. It's just that he hasn't done it recently in terms of like showed us like the classic Johnny Vegas, but we're not that far removed. I know he had that injury, but he could be back. Like he's one of those guys that is such a good ball striker that he's probably still working through some stuff. And then boom, he's just going to pop up one tournament and he's going to show you like the old Johnny Vegas. And we're going to be like, oh yeah, that's not surprising to me that he showed up.
Instead of Fleetwood, Tom Kim, I'm going to play that lineup and I'm going to throw in another. So these are all AM, PM stacks right now.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep a very similar lineup, go back to get rid of Tommy, put Straka back in. Straka really broke my heart on the first 5 holes on Sunday, by the way. I really thought he was going to make a move. And he made a move. It's just after he got himself like 20 strokes back.
Yeah, I had him outright as well. I did the cop out Straka and the without market where there was like 5 people bundled together. So and Rory was one of them. So I was like, this really could work out where Rory wins and I end up cashing the Straka ticket. But yeah, didn't work out.
So I can have $600 here. That means I can upgrade Chandler Phillips or Davis Riley to like a Highsmith, or just leave $600 on the table. That's also if everyone's going to play AM PM waves, even if it's like 35% or even more of the field, just leave a little bit of money on the table. You'll be fine.
Yeah, agree.
So that's another approach that you can take to it. So now I go Straka, Burns, Michael Kim, Kevin Yu, who I'm going to end up betting Kevin Yu to win this tournament. Chuck him in at 125 to 1 for me. Davis, Riley, Chandler Phillips, all the final bets in the newsletter. So I think that's sort of the method that you can do just to review the guys that are in the quote-unquote good wave right now, the AM, PM. And again, just wait until the weather actually happens before submitting all these lineups. You have 4 of the top 5. Xander, Tommy, Straka, and Burns all in the good wave. Burns is going to be the lowest owned of those guys. Then we start going through it a little bit more, and we'll see Tom Kim and Michael Kim are the next 2 guys, aren't they? Wow, that's so crazy that it ended up working out like that. So you got those 2 going down, and then in the $8,000 range after Michael Kim, it is Adam Scott, who we didn't mention, and Ben An. That, you know what? With the first lineup that we built, you could squeeze those guys in pretty easily, I think.
You could. Ben On's approach numbers have been so bad that I don't know that I'd be willing to speculate with him. Adam Scott, maybe a different story. I mean, it's been pretty bad with him as well, but at that price in this tournament, considering where he's at, like wind wave wise, I don't think I mind the Adam Scott play.
If you're just going to go pure, we're just talking about going pure AM, PM right now. You need guys to fill out lineups at different price points. And this is why everyone's going to end up having right around the same lineups. Jager's in the good wave. Dietrich, Kitayama, Bezadenhout are all there as well. Rasmus Højgaard and Nikolai Højgaard. Billy Ho is one who's just playing terrible golf, but he's in there. Bridgman's in it. Highsmith, Harry O is in there, along with Johnny Vegas, Kevin Yu, and Matt Wallace, who I just mentioned. Then you get to your guys who are down in, and Kevin Roy. Jeff brought him up on the show. He actually had a pretty nice tournament here a year ago. Bramwagon as well, coming off a nice week in Puerto Rico, playing in that final group with Phillips, and your South African amateur guy ended up coming in 3rd.
Oh, yeah.
So
I forgot he was in the final group. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, he was the other guy. I think it was the first time ever there's been 2 black guys in the final group of a PGA Tour event. And one of them wasn't even Tiger Woods.
That is interesting. I was so fixated on Neergaard and his run of 6 birdies in a row that I completely forgot that Bramlett was a part of the conversation at the beginning of the round.
How much is Neergaard this week? He's 7,700, or did he withdraw because he doesn't have a tee time?
I don't think I see him. I see Norgard.
No, right. Neergaard Peterson is at $7,700.
He's in the bad wave, but yeah, 7,700.
All right, so he's in the bad wave.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so he's going to make... So let's switch over to that. Let's try to build some more fun lineups that way. I think that's way more fun. And like I said, I'll probably allocate 33% of my lineups, probably dead ones, in larger field GPPs to this sort of lineup. It'll be the PM, AM stack, the bad wave, and we'll hope to get lucky coming out of it. So Justin Thomas is in this, as is Corey Connors, Shane Lowry, Will Zalatoris, and Jordan Spieth. And the good thing about this is you don't have to get tricky with anyone. Whereas if you play the AM PM, you're going to have so many Fleetwood plus Straka combos that you have to start figuring out how to get different. You don't have to get different at all of it. Just play all of the guys that you just think are good in this tournament from this wave, and you'll be good to go. I like Lucas Glover. We'll throw him into the pool. Would you throw in Victor Hovland either way? Because I don't think that I would.
No, because of what you just said. We've already created the leverage just by playing this side of the wave. So it would be guys like Connors, Will Zalatoris, Lucas Glover. In fact, I would start my lineup with those 3. I think Shane Lowry's fine too, but I think a great start is Connors, Zalatoris, Lucas Glover. It's a little pricey, but it could absolutely be done.
I like Lowry more than I like Zalatoris, so I'll go Connors, Lowry, and you said Lucas Glover. I really do like Lucas Glover this week. Where the hell is Ben Griffin at? Ben Griffin 79. Get him in there. Throw in some Ben Griffin into this lineup because I liked him originally anyway. Who are the other ones? Bud Colley? How much is Bud Colley?
7,600.
All right, let's throw in Bud Colley. We need someone at 6,700 from the bad wave.
That should be pretty easy.
No, I'm sure Matt McCarty is in the bad wave. He's there. Brian Campbell. Oh, Chandler Phillips is actually in the good wave. Thorbjornsen, Patrick Fishburne, Mac Meisner. They're all these dudes are playing in the early wave. Matteo Manacero's up there.
Henrik Norlander's down there at 6,500. I mean, it's the approach play though. Ben Coles is down there. I don't really like Ben Coles. ADDC, your boy, is
he qualified.
Is at 6,600. Yeah, exactly.
He got through the Monday queue in order to get in. My numbers love Neil Shipley, but he's also in the wrong wave. So it's more difficult to fit guys in from down here, weirdly enough, because there's just not as many. Most of them are playing in the AM, coming out hot. So maybe I can I can probably try to change this up a little bit. I don't need to play Bud Cully. If I go to 7,100, now I need to take two guys at that price point. Seamus Power had a pretty good run here a year ago. I like McGreevy in the form he has coming in. Throw him in?
Joel Damon and McGreevy, I think, are great plays in that low 7K range in the bad wave, of course.
And obviously, I like Sam Ryder a ton, who's in the bad wave. So we'll go McGreevy and Sam Ryder. Now we got Connors, Lowry, Glover, Ben Griffin, Sam Ryder, Max McGreevy. Combined ownership, maybe less than Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah, I mean, so that lineup, I honestly think people should be playing that. Like we talked about at the front end of the show. Spend more of your money on the all-ins on the other wave, but to not have one or two, unless you're just 100% sure about the weather, to not have one or two that look something like this is a great lineup. Again, you could quibble about some of these guys and just swap them out for guys that you like, I guess, but this lineup is just so perfect when everybody else is playing the other wave. I'm just stating the obvious, but this is a dream lineup in the sense that you don't really have to worry about ownership too much.
You don't have to worry about ownership. You can take the guys you want, and it's not even about getting the weather right or wrong. It's not like everyone who plays in the bad wave is gonna miss the cut.
Yeah, and by the way, the weather might not be as extreme as we think it is. In other words, it could be like a full, maybe it's a stroke and a half advantage, which is significant. But that doesn't mean that, again, to your point, that those 6 players didn't overcome that stroke advantage. And all of a sudden you're going into the weekend, which I think is going to be nice Saturday and Sunday, with a lineup that basically with players that nobody's playing. I mean, it's just a perfect setup.
Additionally, when it pertains to the weather this week too, and we looked at it, it's why are we playing the AM guys? Because the PM on Friday looks really good, whereas the AM looks really bad. All you need is for that bad weather in the AM on Friday to just happen overnight, and by the time they get to the course, it's gone. Everyone has a good day Friday, and all of a sudden you have the best lineup.
That's right. And again, the point I was originally going to make 30 seconds ago was that we could look at extreme weather right now, in terms of a wave split, but maybe it's just lessened just enough for it not to be that big of a deal. And again, now you're playing a lineup with studs that nobody else is playing.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo experience. Go to Underdog right now and use code MAYO. That'll get you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Can't play in the Pat Mayo Open anymore because that's full, but dropping on Saturday will be my Houston Open preview. Plus, I'll have best ball strategy for major season. There is one prize pool up right now that is $500,000 of guaranteed money on Underdog. So if you use code MAYO, you can use the bonus funds to draft in it. My article is already up. The video will be up soon about the strategy that you want to take. Plus, if you bookmark that article, I will update it because it has a full list of guys that are already in which major. So who's playing all 4, who's only in 3, which ones are they? The list will tell you.
That's awesome. I love tools like that. I definitely lean on them in a big way as because Pat, week to week, I'm so consumed by what's happening today and tomorrow that sometimes it's really hard for me to look ahead, but you make stuff like that and it's just very easy for me to be oh, okay, I can now assess this tournament a little bit better than I could have otherwise because I've got this nice little list here.
Let the peoples know where they can find you all throughout the week because you're doing 80 things every day.
Yeah, I mean, the best bet is to follow me at Sia Nejad on the Twitter. But I will say that I host a morning show every Monday on the Sportsline YouTube channel, Monday through Friday. It's a betting show at 10 a.m. But if you follow me on Twitter, you can follow all my shows, including the Early Wedge, which is a golf show that we do 5 days a week. I'm on it 4 days a week. It's with me, Patrick McDonald, Jason Sobel is on that show, Eric Cohen's on that show, Rick Gaiman's on that show. So we talk a lot of bets. We have some fun.
Don't ask Sobel about the weather.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We had to talk about that. We have a live show on Sundays during the round. And he was he was not happy, probably not happy with himself because he had put that information out there, but he definitely got called on it. And he was just like, you know what? I'm not a meteorologist. I'm sorry. I had information. I put it out there and it was wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the app that he used just lied to him. Like, he had bad information. Like, he didn't hit, like, refresh or anything like that. And everyone's like, what the hell is going on here? Happens.
Yeah, not
happens.
Yeah, listen, when you try to play something like meteorologist, which we did for the last hour, by the way, you might get burned. But again, we qualified ours. The weather might change.
Yeah, we're trying to leverage people being wrong about the weather and hopefully help us in our DraftKings lineups and with our bets. I think that there is something to that.
100%. When it comes to DFS in particular, I mean, you could create such a huge advantage for yourself if somehow the weather is incorrect.
All right. Well, that will do it for me. You can follow me at the PME, code Mayo and Underdog, fantasynational.com/Mayo, and I will see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!